Chief Freddie Montgomery is in the room. We can start with the executive session of the Clarksville City Council. This is October, yes, applause please. October 26, 2023. First item on our executive session agenda is, as usual, our Planning Commission report. Mr. Tyndall, please, sir. We're on item A, ordinance 38, 2023-24.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for the pleasure to be here today. We have one zoning case and one annexation in front of you today. The first case is a Z56 2023 from the Planning Commission, estate of Bruce and Autris Carden. Applicant's agent is Ligon Home Builders. This is 1.52 acres, currently zoned RM1, and that's a mobile home exclusive lot. And they're wishing to go to R3, and it is an extension of the R3 to the north. There's other R3 and R4 in the area as well. This parcel fronts Evans Road, approximately 325 feet north of Evans Road and Dogwood Trail intersection. This is in City Council Ward number 3. There are 2 vacant mobile home lots with varying topography on the site. And the applicant's statement is to build affordable homes. The property touches R3 to the right, and there's a distressed trailer lot. That's the applicant's words. This is one of the properties in question right here. You can see our sign to the right. And this is looking back Evans Road toward Dogwood Trail. And this is the other site with the for sale sign on it. Comments from the other departments. The street department has said when it comes in for subdivision that access from Dogwood Trail only. Now, we can clarify that not all these 2 parcels touch Dogwood Trail, but the majority that do would have to access the parcels off Dogwood, as Evans is more of a collector road, and we don't want as many driveways out there if possible. So when that comes in for subdivisions, we would reduce the curb cuts out there to the extent possible. No other department comments or concerns, and the school system's comments about their capacities at Minglewood, New Providence, and Northwest are listed. Historical estimates would put this at 12 units. The applicant's estimate is 15. Staff does recommend approval. The proposed zoning request is consistent with the land use plan. The Evans Road area continues to be an area in transition. Longstanding mobile home districts are seeing an increased interest to redevelop into conventional stick-built family homes, duplexes, and multifamily. The proposed R3 request is not out of character with the development pattern in the area, and it is encouraged to maintain a desirable mixture of housing and adequate infrastructure serves the site. No adverse environmental issues were identified, and the Planning Commission also recommended approval.
Thank you, Mr. Tyndall. Any comment or question about ordinance 38? Councilperson Reynolds, you are recognized.
I'm sorry, I should look this up. I can't remember the new rule for R3.
About sidewalk,
No, lot size,
30 foot minimum.
30 foot. So this could be single and attached.
If they don't divide 2 triplexes, obviously there's opportunities to divide the rear of those properties and do some other stuff. They have some interesting depths, so we'll see what the applicant brings through, but I expect, knowing the builder, to be single family houses.
Okay, thank you.
Councilperson Marquis, you're recognized.
This is really more of a comment to the council. I did speak to the developer earlier today, and he told me that he will not be able to make the meeting next week. So if anyone has any questions, just make sure to contact him, since there won't be anyone here next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment or question? Seeing none, we're ready for item B, resolution 08, 2023-24. Mr. Tyndall, please, sir.
All right, you'll have an annexation in front of you this month and one next month. So this month, there's only 2 resolutions, one for the plan of service and one for the annexation. Next month, we will do the reapportionment ordinance when we have both annexations complete. This is representing 6 properties north of Hancock or Rossview Road off Exit 8, adjacent to International Boulevard, more colloquially known as Taco John's, Burger King, and Popeyes. Property is owned by 3 different property owners. One is the major property owner is the IDB, representing the 3 properties on the north side, and then Newellberg LLC and NB3 LLC, the owners of the fast food restaurants off Hancock Road. Proposed potential development of this site would be 2 more fast food restaurants, a full service restaurant, an occupational walk-in health clinic, a full-service grocery and pharmacy, and additional multi-tenant spaces. With this, there's no additional right-of-way being requested since Hancock Road is already within the city's jurisdiction, and there was no objection or issues from any of the departments. This is a completely C5 zoned set of parcels, so it will only remain commercial unless it rezones in the future, and they're not requesting any rezoning with this annexation. The Planning Commission reviewed the annexation and the plan of service and recommends approval.
Questions about Resolution 8? Councilperson McLaughlin, you recognize.
Thank you, Mayor. This might be a question for Ms. Mott. Probably know this, but is the IDB tax exempt? Do they pay property taxes? They don't.
No, they do not.
Thank you.
I channeled her when I spoke. Okay. Any other comment or question regarding Resolution 8? Seeing none, Resolution 9, 2023-24.
Resolution 9 will be the annexation, so 8 will be the plan of service, and 9 will be the actual annexation of the properties. So hand in glove with those two.
Comment or question regarding Ordinance 9? Councilperson McLaughlin.
I apologize, Mayor. This is actually on Ordinance 8. And Chief Crockrell's going to know what I'm going to say is, in the statements from the departments, it says that the police department can handle the additional property under the current staffing plan. And when we had the last annexation, that was also the statement, but it wasn't the case. So I'm just curious as to what the potential for more staffing could be for that precinct in the industrial park.
I would say the potential's great for more personnel overall in the police department, including that district.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did I do it right, Chief? Oh, okay, yeah, channeling my Chief
I
Crocker.
could probably add something to this too, that this is commercial properties and not residential, so we're not going to add hundreds or thousands of residents like the previous annexation, which I think was led to some of those comments as well.
Commercial businesses like fast food have their own set of problems.
They can.
So, okay.
Yes, they do. Anything else? Anyone else have a comment or question regarding either resolution? Seeing none, Mr. Tyndall.
In record fashion, that concludes my report.
Wow. Okay, standing ovation. Let's go consent agenda, Madam Clerk. Please read the consent agenda.
All items in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and be approved by one motion. However, a member of the council may request that an item be removed for separate consideration under the appropriate committee report. Ordinance 27, 2023-24, second reading, an ordinance amending the operating and capital budgets for fiscal year 2024 for governmental funds to amend capital project names. Ordinance 29, 2023-24, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Will Christian for zone change on property located on a tract of land south of the eastern terminus of Eagles Nest Lane, east of Viewmont Drive and west of Heatherwood Trace, from AG Agricultural District to MXU PUD Mixed Land Planned Unit Development District. Ordinance 30, 2023-24, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Frank Stable for zone change on a parcel fronting on the north frontage of East Street, 215 plus or minus feet east of the Beach Street and East Street intersection, from R3, 3-family residential district, to R4, multiple family residential district. Ordinance 31, 2023-24, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Clarksville Christian Center for zone change on property located on a parcel of land fronting on the east frontage of Old Russellville Pike, 300 plus or minus feet south of the Old Russellville Pike and Honeycomb Court intersection, from R1, single-family residential district, to C2, general commercial district. Ordinance 32, 2023-24, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Living Hope Baptist Church for zone change on a parcel located at the northwest corner of the Tylertown Road and Winterset Drive intersection, from R5 residential district to C1 neighborhood commercial district. Ordinance 33, 2023-24, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Double Bogey Partners for zone change on a parcel located at the northeast corner of Lafayette Road and Evans Road, from R1 Single Family Residential District to R4 Multiple Family Residential District. Ordinance 34, 2023-24, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville. Application of Johnny Piper for zone change on property located on a portion of the parcel located at the southwest corner of Innovation Way and Eubank Drive from M2 General Industrial District to M1 Light Industrial District. Resolution 6, 2023-24, a resolution approving appointments to the Airport Liaison Board, Museum Board, Parking Commission, Roxy Regional Theater Board, Senior Citizens Board, and Zoning Appeals Board. Resolution 10, 2023-24, a resolution approving a certificate of compliance for sale of beer or wine at Mac's Convenience Store, doing business as Circle K, number 4703915, located at 380 Warfield Boulevard in Clarksville. Resolution 11, 2023-24, a resolution approving a certificate of compliance for sale of beer or wine at Mac's Convenience Store, doing business as Circle K, number 4703916, located at 1775 Madison Street in Clarksville, and the adoption of minutes from October 2nd and October 5th, 2023.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any comment or question regarding the consent agenda? Seeing none, while I have your attention, I want to let you know that Lisa Canfield is now a duly certified city clerk according to the state of Tennessee Secretary of State. So we want to congratulate her for that. All right, we're ready for Finance Committee. Chairperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 36, 2023-24, first reading. An ordinance amending the operating budgets for fiscal year 2024 for governmental funds. Ordinance 140-2022-23 to appropriate and approve an approval of a 5% market adjustment. The Finance Committee did vote in favor of approval of this. This is to allow our city departments to be able to better compete, to retain employees as well as bring on new employees. What we've seen happen is we've had spots remain open or lost positions because they could leave and go to another city, make more money. So what we're trying to do is get us better in line with the competition that we do have for our employees, because they are great employees and we'd like to be able to keep them. Please note this is a market adjustment. It is not a general wage increase. So therefore, this will apply to all employees that are on the payroll effective November 17th. This includes full-time, part-time, seasonal, and I'm forgetting one of the categories, but I apologize, it's all employees. And also any employee that hires on after, from November 18th on, they will be at that new pay rate. If anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Any comment or question? Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
Yeah, I would just like to know, and maybe we don't know right off the top of our heads, but what is the lowest pay for full-time right now? Are we above $15 an hour,
Yeah,
or are we
we're-
still?
We're at 15 and above.
15
The
and above.
floor is 15.
Okay, I thought so, I just want to make sure.
I will also add that in the Finance Committee, we also voted to increase the pay tables so that those that are on the higher end also get that same increase, and it's not causing us to have our pay kind of pushed together.
Councilperson Reynolds?
Oh, I'm sorry, no, I was done.
Oh, okay. Any other comment or question? Seeing none, Chairperson Streetman.
All right, thank you. Ordinance 37, 2023-24, first reading. An ordinance amending Part 2 Code of Ordinances, Title 13, Utilities and Service, Chapter 3, Gas and Water and Sewer Services, the City of Clarksville relative to credit and debit card transaction fees. The Finance Committee recommended approval of the ordinance. This is exactly what we talked about previously and held off on so that our gas and water department could look at things more closely. They did find that the rule that had been found from several years ago is not still in effect. It has been overturned. So there is not still a limit on what could be charged, but they are trying to do their best to be able to service our customers while not putting too much of the onus on our lower end residential customers versus the large amount that are commercial customers would be using. So you'll note that the credit and debit card transaction fee, which will not be effective until February 1st, 2024, online or automated phone system payments is 3% of the payment amount with a $1.75 minimum fee. If they pay with the kiosk or with a customer service representative, that also means if they're calling in, paying it over the phone, it's going to be 2% of the payment amount. There's no minimum fee required. This is strictly in relation to credit and debit card transaction fees. So if a customer is used to paying online with their debit card, a debit card works the same way as because it's debiting your account directly. You could pay it via ACH and still not have that fee because it's going to be processed differently than a debit card would be. So it's not going through our third-party processor. Anybody has any questions, I am willing to answer them.
Comment or question? Councilperson Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to add that there is no charge to pay for cash. That's what he told me. But, and the reason I asked that was, and I voted against this, because I seen, that we have charged so many fees for a lot of things. We charge unnecessary fees. And I think, because I've had a lot of complaints about the water and gas department going up, that we should waive these fees for the customer. And I understand why we're charging, but I still think that we ought to waive these fees for the customers, because I think we passed we passed the ordinance that we raise the water. I think it's every year it goes up, and the sewage is so higher, much higher than the water bill, and I've gotten those complaints. And so I'm just thinking that we ought to, waive the fees on the credit cards. We charge so many unnecessary fees, and I saw this on the news as well. Right after I voted down, I went home, there it was on the news for the unnecessary fees. I remember when I used my charge card years ago, they didn't charge a fee to the customer, but now we are. And I can understand why, but I still think we ought to waive the fees. Thank you.
Any other comment or question? Seeing none, Chairperson Streetman.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 07-2023-24, a resolution authorizing the issuance, sale, and payment of up to $41.5 million in principal amount of water, sewer, and gas revenue bonds, Series 2023, the City of Clarksville, Tennessee. Both the Finance Committee and the Gas and Water Committees voted in favor of approval. This is not refinancing any debt that we currently have. This is actually something we've done many a times before, and this is for 2 sewer projects.
Comment or question regarding this resolution? Seeing none, Chairperson Streetman.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you. We're ready for Gas and Water Committee. Chairperson Holloman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have a full report next week.
Thank you. Neighborhood and Community Services, the chair is absent. Full report next week. Parks and Recreation Committee, Chairperson Zacharias, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have a full report next week.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Chairperson Redd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. We have ordinance 35, 2023, 24. This is an ordinance amending the official code, Title 10, Offenses Miscellaneous, Chapter 3, Anti-Noise Regulations pertain to the Economic Development and Entertainment Complexes. Public Safety Committee voted unanimously for approval. This is just allowing for sports complexes. You know, we're going to have a ballpark. It will allow for a ballpark to play the sports there, and or if they have concerts for the hours, though, that they will still have to close at 11 o'clock at night till 7:30 in the morning, and this will just allow for that because we don't have an amendment currently stating that.
Okay, you've heard the explanation. Any comment or question regarding this ordinance? Councilperson Smith, you're recognized.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Since it's over in my area, right, probably about 20 feet from my home, I was hoping that we do have a meeting with the citizens in that area. As Mr. Tender told me, he would set up a meeting with the community before we, bring it back to this body, which we will be voting on this next month, which is next week. Thank you, Mr. Tender. I want to thank you for want to speak with the residents of that area. I don't know if it'll do any good, but we thank you for just the opportunity. And thank the mayor as well.
Thank you. Any other comment or question? Councilperson, Chairperson Red.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Transportation, Streets, and Garage Committee, Chairperson Smith.
We'll see you on November the 2nd.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Under new business, we have 3 resolutions regarding designations, naming of roads. First resolution, approving the official name of the road shown in attachment 8 is Connell Way. The next one is Resolution 13, same general area, would be Athletic Complex Boulevard, and then the third would be International Boulevard. As you enter the complex, we're extending the International Boulevard name. The first roundabout will hang a left, and that will be Connell Way, which is Mary Ann and Chip Connell, who sold the property to the city for the athletic complex. Property had been in their family for generations, and then once you make the next roundabout, as you enter into the athletic complex, that's when it will be Athletic Complex Boulevard. Any question about those 3 resolutions? Seeing none, we're now ready for discussion items. Overview of accessibility guidelines for pedestrian facilities in the public right-of-way, PROAG. Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized on that item.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've been working on the sidewalk ordinance, and I thought it was important to review the PROAG guidelines. Many of these slides are wordy. I'm not going to read them all the way, but I wanted to be very transparent and make sure as I walk through this that I did not cherry pick the information from the Federal Register. So I left the wording for your review so you know where it came from and what it actually says. When I first started the process, I was reviewing the PROAG versus ADA compliance because many of the city's ordinances in Tennessee reference both PROAG and ADA, and I didn't understand the differences. And then as I was getting ready a few months ago to kind of move forward, I noticed a change in my link, so they had been working on updating PROAG since 2007, and in October of 2023, they have published the new PROAG guidelines, and they're pretty significant changes. Oh, did that go the wrong way? There it goes. All right. So what is PROAG? I don't know if you guys can see it on your screen. It might be easier to see. But PROAG is Public Right-of-Way Accessibility Guidelines. And it's actually like the basis for the ADA and other types of, just ADA. Provides minimum guidelines for the accessibility of pedestrian facilities in the public right-of-way. We often hear of ADA and PROAG compliant. Many cities in Tennessee, like I said, use both. The guidelines will be enforceable once they are adopted by DOJ. So they have been approved, but DOJ still has to adopt them. That could take up to a year. I keep hitting the wrong button, sorry. There it goes. All right. Just a reminder of why ADA versus PROAG. While the benefits of regulations ensure civil rights cannot be fully quantified and monetized, the monetizable benefits of this final rule far outweigh the costs, and costs will be very apparent as we go through this. Equal access to pedestrian facilities is of particular importance to pedestrians with low or no vision. And many city ordinances in the state of Tennessee, I said used PROAG even before this new ruling. We as a city did not. So I'm not going to read this to you, but I want to stress that it says every newly constructed and altered pedestrian circulation path. That's going to be important. We're going to talk about what that really means, but that is continuing. It was 59 pages of the register that I've read 4 times now and understand it probably about 60%. still reading, and reaching out. So just kind of a summary of some of the significant changes and wording that is throughout this document. It says any portion of a facility that is altered must be altered to comply with these guidelines, regardless of the intended scope of project by the entity undertaking the alteration. So they talk about entity versus city, and it says that they must they must comply with these guidelines. Facilities and portions of the facilities that are added to an existing developed public right-of-way are alterations and are subject to the requirements of the altered facilities. And this is kind of, I saw this wording throughout the document. Board expects full compliance with the requirements for new construction or undeveloped, i.e. greenfield, while any construction undertaken in an existing developed right-of-way is expected to comply to the maximum extent feasible. That's again, so the significant language here is the scope of project, regardless of the intended scope of project, and maximum extent feasible. I've actually shared this information with Mr. Baker and his team, and we will be reviewing to make sure that my sidewalk ordinance and the wording that I have is in compliance. So I'm continuing with some of the significant changes. Again, the language. Again, this goes into a little bit more detail about maximum extent feasible. It talks about, they remove the words of impractical and technically infeasible, and they also eliminated right-of-way availability. So if the city doesn't own it, the right-of-way, and it's available, the city is now expected to purchase that property and continue with the appropriate right-of-way. The board acknowledges that in many cases, regulated entities have the authority to acquire additional right-of-way, which made it a confusing example. So they removed it from the previous wording. These are significant changes, and we should work together to implement them in a timely manner, because retrofitting these requirements will be very expensive. It's much cheaper to do it right the first time. And I hope that we can all work together as I present the sidewalk ordinance, because it's important that we financially protect our taxpayers. This is an excerpt from the executive summary of the guidelines. It talks about what's very important is protruding objects and signalization. Minimum sidewalks are 4 feet. And one of the main changes is that they are no longer to decrease the size to 32 inches around protruding items. There must be a continuous 4-foot sidewalk or pathway on our pedestrian right-of-ways. I'm sorry. So it's as you read further, the document is broken up into different chapters. And chapter 1 is application administration. And one of the key things that I noted, guidelines apply to public rights-of-way, including right-of-way that forms the boundary of a site or what lies inside of the site. So oftentimes we're not catching our boundary. So we're in the future, and when you read the sidewalk ordinance, I've included boundaries in our sidewalk ordinance. Alteration. The defined term now also includes altered. The definition has been edited to clarify that an addition of a pedestrian facility to an existing developed right-of-way is considered an alteration and therefore must become compliant. This one, the scoping, again, when they talked about scoping, you see the words highlighted, maximum extent feasible. And in the blue highlighted area, the document said the term scope of the project no longer appears in the guidelines. In the 2004 ABA and ADA accessibility guidelines, whatever is altered must be compliant. And alterations in a continuous network of pedestrian access routes will be established piece by piece as pedestrian facilities are altered and brought into compliance with PROWOG. So a patchwork. protruding objects was reviewed at length in the document, in the new guidelines. And one of the most notable things is the language regarding clear width and the requirement of 48 inches. Again, this is a change from the previous guidelines. We've been doing it according to the previous guidelines, just to be clear to the community, but the guidelines have changed. And I just want to add that. So specifically, a 48-inch continuous clear width is required. That was not a requirement in the previous guidelines. And full compliance is considered structurally impractical only when those rare circumstances when the unique characteristics of terrain prevent the incorporation of accessibility features. There's other information there. We talk about vision, low vision or no vision. And I remind people that this is really equity and equality for our community. People with low vision or no vision have to take public transportation. They have to use the sidewalks to move, and cane detectable was important in much of the documentation. If you put a protruding object inside of the walkway, and I have to stay to one side to keep off the side of the curb, then I'm going to miss other items that are protruding. And they talked about that quite a bit inside, benches inside on one side, and then street signs or a curb on the other that would not allow the person with low vision or no vision to continue walking. Oh, did I miss one? Oh, yes. So crosswalks was very extensively covered inside of the document. Crosswalk treatments and roundabouts. The final rule expands the crosswalk treatment options among which jurisdictions must select for installation a multi-lane pedestrian crossing at roundabouts to include a traffic control signal with a pedestrian signal head, a pedestrian hybrid beacon, a pedestrian actuated rectangular rapid flashing beacon, and a raised crossing. This is kind of important in the blue. The board acknowledges that the requirement for universal installation of APS is probably one of the single most costly provisions of PROWOG. And if you remember at the last, when we had our informal meeting and we went over the projects, I had asked several questions regarding the circle at Whitfield, because I knew that I had already read this document, and and if we do not build it to code and we have to replace a water main or we have to do anything underneath that, then we would have to go back in and make that brand new circle compliant with the new rules. I did reach out to the street department, and I'm grateful for their response, but they indicated that we are following the new guidelines in that circle. I again urge the leaders in our community, builders and council members to work together, protect our taxpayers from undue cost burdens due to a lack of planning. We need to start now and update our codes to support these new standards. So here's some additional information about roundabouts. Roundabouts present a unique challenge to pedestrians who are blind or have low vision. One of the reasons is because they're created so vehicles don't stop. And it makes the continuous traffic flow very difficult for people with low vision or no vision to navigate. Sighted pedestrians usually access with the distance and speed of oncoming cars to decide when they should cross. However, pedestrians who are blind or have low vision are not able to identify breaks in oncoming traffic by sight and the lack of audible cues that might otherwise substitute for visible information. And it went in, the final rule requires that, like other accessible pedestrian signals, all new and altered roundabouts provide audible and tactical information in addition to visible cues, and all new and altered RRFBs provide audible information communicating that the warning lights are flashing. Again, this is for your reference at the city council for you guys to read. But what's important here is the highlighted words are edge detection and separation. And so they insist that there's a cane detectable edge or separation, a landscape separation from the road, because it's a circle and it's very hard for someone without vision to navigate without having those cues on the ground for them. So, does anybody have any questions?
Any questions about ProWog? Seeing none, we're ready for the second item, updating the sidewalk ordinance. Councilperson Reynolds.
Thank you. Okay. So, let me see. Oh, sorry, Lisa. Sorry. All right. So in the packet, there is a draft of the sidewalk ordinance that I'm making public. I think it's very important that I wanted to be very transparent with all of you. I really, truly want your insight and input as we move forward. I want to make sure that we get this right the first time. It's something when we knock doors, we all knew our community was discussing sidewalks, walkability, traffic, and this is truly a deliverable for all of us if we talked about that when we were campaigning. So the final ruling for ProWog is effective October 2023. The cost of not building it right the first time is going to be very expensive for taxpayers and ratepayers. In 2002, Clarksville lost a class action lawsuit because our sidewalks were not ADA compliant. I believe, I did not get a complete response, but I believe it was over $40 million from 2002. And if you remember, last year, we actually were still using that court case to repair some of our sidewalks. It was still part of our budget. Not adopting ProWog and addressing our lack of connectivity now will cost our taxpayers every time we perform maintenance, such as digging it up to fix a water leak or repair of the surface. And I remind you, our community overwhelmingly supports walkability. So the question is, why now? And we're infilling, and this is an example of why now and why we need to repair things. If you look at this image on the screen, at the top is a new apartment building, probably less than 4 years old, and off to the left in the area that is going to the white, that is Glen Ellen Elementary School. So we built a apartment building with no sidewalk and no crosswalk, where you can actually see the elementary school from the exit of the apartment building. This is within the responsibility, the parent responsibility zone for kids to get to school. When I go out to this area, I can see the goat path where the kids are darting across the street and walking in the grass to get to this school. This image is at the other end of the intersection. You see the construction in the middle. And then on the right, this is at the Bell Road. We've approved 240 apartments. Again, you can see how close we are to the school. And when this was at the zoning board, there was actually a variance approved, and they were not required to put a sidewalk in. I know that we are developing Needmore Road, but we already have that in process, and we should have at least, they did require them to dedicate the property, but I think that we need to do better, and that's why we need to reinforce our sidewalk ordinances. This is Old Trenton Road. This area has experienced infill in the last 10 years, but no sidewalks are built. If we had required sidewalks as we were infilling this, there would almost be a continuous sidewalk. And I remind you, in this photo, you can see the area connects the Nashville State College, the community and two housing areas without a walkability for those to get back and forth. Am I on the wrong slide? What am I on?
This ain't that, this
Oh,
ain't
that's
that from
Belleville.
stage.
Oh, I went the wrong way. There it is. Sorry, thank you. This one, sorry. So you can see the black schoolhouse and the walking, and we actually are putting in a new road. I'm sure they're going to come back and put in a sidewalk of that road, but it is not there yet. So why do we measure walkability? There's actually a dashboard, and if you look up Clarksville on the dashboard, on the walkability city health dashboard, if you go to the slides online, you can actually, that's an actual link, so you can see that information. Walkability helps us understand how well the design of a city supports walking and other physical activities. People living in neighborhoods with high walkability are more likely to be active in how they get around, including walking, using public transportation. Research has found that people in such neighborhoods tend to have lower rates of diabetes and obesity than living in other areas. Walkable neighborhoods often have less vehicle use, which can lead to improved air quality, as well as decrease our traffic issues. So how does Clarksville measure up? Clarksville is currently rated as a car-dependent city with a walkability score of 17.3 out of 100. We were actually rated the second worst in the nation, the second most car-dependent in the nation. Clarksville has an obesity rate of 37.6% compared to a national average of 31.2. That's even more alarming when you consider that much of our population is active duty and very young. We have an estimated 23.1% of residents who can walk to a park in 10 minutes compared to the national average of 61.5%. So leading up to the draft that I presented that you see in the agenda is I've met with the street department several times. They're tired of me. I've met with the planning commission several times. He's tired of me. I've met with several community members for review. Improving walkability is a focus of the Montgomery County Health Council. I've updated the ordinance and presented and reviewed it to the council, and they support this. Research, and I want people to know that most of the language in this new ordinance, I have taken the language from other cities. I've cherry-picked the language and sent it around, so it's not Karen language, it's either pro-WOG language or it is from another municipality inside of Tennessee. It's also been on the TSG committee agenda for 3 months, and it'll be on the agenda next month, hopefully. So when I was talking about sidewalks in our community, there's no surprise. I think we've all heard the same thing from our community members, that they are important and valuable and not just a luxury. That we should be transparent about who's going to pay for these things. It's a public benefit. We're not going to get walkability under our current standards. The current system is unfair, and one size does not fit all. Also, many citizens said enforcement is not uniform, and most citizens requested a buffer along our busy roads from the sidewalk. There are challenges with deferrals and waivers, and the residents said that if we do a waiver or we don't require a sidewalk, then we should have an audit trail. So when I drafted the ordinance, I attempted to balance input from a wide range of feedback and perhaps find some unique ways to fill in the gaps for funding. This is our current sidewalk plan, and one of the conversations I had initially was about centering our schools and sidewalk funds to schools, and I just tell you that if you drop a 1 mile or a 1.5 mile radius around our schools in our community, it's every bit of our community. So we kind of moved away from that prioritization. So the language is, I already talked about that. The proposed ordinance that has a in lieu of fee. So if we have areas where we're not building a sidewalk, one, because it's topographic, or two, because we already have a plan to put one there, or funding to put one there, then they would pay an in lieu of fee. We're prioritizing walkability, and sidewalks are required everywhere. New minimum standards for a sidewalk is 5 feet. And I'm going to go into that in a minute. Definition and requirement of barrier curb has been added, and we've updated the sidewalk priority indicator table. I will tell you, when I first started writing this, I got the language of in lieu of actually at the Regional Planning Commission. It was mentioned several times by different builders, and that was actually the focus of when I started writing this. And then I had to pause because, and we'll talk a little bit, there's a court case in Nashville, and during that pause, then ProWalk was approved. So it's been probably about a year and many conversations that I've carted this ordinance around for different people to look at. All right, so I want to talk about 4 foot versus 5 foot, and I appreciate the staff of the planning of the street department and their patience while I tried to figure out what that actually means. ProWalk talks about they admitted that 5 foot sidewalks was really the preference, but when they started to require 5 foot sidewalks, then there was so many variances in the sidewalk ordinance and why they couldn't, that they said, we're just going to require 4 feet. But the street department has requested that we stay at 5 feet and manage the variances. And at first I didn't understand why, but the other morning, actually just recently, I was walking in a newly constructed neighborhood. And as I was walking, I could see, if you get into the ProWalk, they talk about slope, and you have to maintain a slope. But if you go into a little bit of a hilly neighborhood, you see where our builders maintain the slope of the sidewalk over the driveways. Well, according to ProWalk, you have to have a 5 foot passing every 200 feet. In our neighborhoods, we're using the driveways, which makes sense. But if we only have a 4 foot sidewalk, that means when I get to the driveway, I then have to widen it to 5 feet, and then I go back down. And that would be very hard to enforce and very hard to follow. So I'm assuming that that's why we'll just go with 5 feet unless we need a waiver. Because then all the way across the driveways, it will stay. So I think I covered everything there. Does anyone have a question about this one? Because it's kind of important.
Question? Carry on. Oh,
Okay.
Councilperson Smith, you had a question?
Yeah, I got a question. I'm sure Karen already knows about what it may be. And this is concerning her in lieu of payment. And I heard you say that they, the reason that they would require the in lieu of a payment is that because of the area and it's already a plan put in place over there. So what plan has been put in place for your guidelines to establish sidewalks in older neighborhoods that pay taxes and homeowners that want sidewalks due to overpopulation and no walkability?
So that's exactly why I'm redoing the ordinance, because those areas continue to slip through. When we do if you dig back into the ordinance, I've indicated that the in lieu of fee would be reviewed by the street department, but then it would have to be approved by the TSG committee. And that would put just another layer of transparency and also review to make sure that we're giving our community equal access to walkability.
So my concern is, you didn't answer my question, is that there are no sidewalks in the area over in Red River where homes have been built, several new homes have been built in the area, and no sidewalks have been put there. You said in lieu of putting sidewalks, we receive money. So what is the plan?
So the plan, the new, if you open up
I don't know what,
and you read the original ordinance, it says that sidewalks are required everywhere.
I understand.
And that they're not allowed to give a variance except for topographical issues, or, we already have a plan. So in response to your question, if this passes, then they'll always have to put sidewalks, and they won't be able not to put sidewalks.
They'll be able not to put sidewalks?
They will not be able to say, I'm not
Not
building a
putting
sidewalk. Right.
So what do we do about what's going on now? I mean, the homes are being built there, so what is the solution for right now? All of the homes have been built, not one sidewalk has been put in the Red River neighborhood. So what is the,
I think that's more of a planning question and a mayor question, and we need to put that on our transportation.
and the reason I'm
2020
asking
future.
because I've been getting the, calls about this. And, every sidewalk should have been put in every neighborhood, regardless of where it is. Why has not one has been put in the Red River neighborhood is my concern for the residents over there. There are several children that ride the bus. Bus stops right in front of my house. There's no walkability. You can't even ride your bike. So I'm saying, is this gonna fix the problem? I don't see in lieu of gonna fix the problem.
It's
I
not
don't
gonna
see where they're-
retrofit.
Hang on, let her
communities.
finish her
Oh, I'm
question
sorry.
statement. Thank you.
And you said that there's already a plan put over there. That's the reason why you're doing this, for this in lieu of, there's already been a plan and topographic. So I wanna know what the plan is for that area.
So what I meant by that statement is for instance, we're redoing the
I
sidewalks,
understand that. That's
and there's
Let
a
her
plan to
fin-
put
let her
that.
finish her statement.
And there's a plan to put a sidewalk in that area on Needmore. It doesn't make sense, but if there's not a plan, they have to put a sidewalk. This ordinance cannot go backwards. I'm trying to protect us from this day forward, so we don't continue to do that. I can't,
I know, but we need to put something in there retroactive for those who don't have sidewalks. Make it retroactive. You can do that. You can go back and say, hey, we need to go back and fix something in that, neighborhood.
Well, that's part of what we're attempting to do with the Transportation 2020 Plus plan, is to put sidewalks where there are none, focusing around schools. Councilperson Reynolds?
I don't have anything to add to that one. I think, Councilperson Smith, sorry, Alan, has another question.
Thank you.
Are you finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilperson Allen, you're recognized.
So I kind of understand what the previous council member was talking about. But we do have something in place where we go back and we retrofit so many neighborhoods per year, correct? And how are those neighborhoods selected? I mean, do we just say, okay, we're gonna do this neighborhood, and this neighborhood? Is there a lottery? How do we decide which neighborhoods are selected to be retrofitted?
There's a matrix
Okay.
that the street department uses to determine the additional appropriation the council made of $6 million. That was targeted around schools, especially in light of the parent responsibility zone changes the school system made. And we're making very slow progress there because it is a very arduous, as you might expect, time-consuming process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson McLaughlin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to publicly say I appreciate the work that the sponsor has put into this with the help of the staff. And being on the Transportation Street and Garage Committee, I appreciate being part of the process. And per our last meeting, I did send comments to Mr. Cowan and Mr. Smith. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that publicly, that I did send some feedback back. But I think we're headed in the right direction. I do appreciate and understand the frustration of a previous speaker. There's some infill going on all over Clarksville, North Clarksville, Northwest Clarksville, and where vacant lots are now have houses on them. Well, they're not required to put a sidewalk in because there are 25 other houses there that don't have a sidewalk. So I think that is probably the example that was mentioned about the Red River neighborhood. That And that's one of the things that the sponsor's trying to address. If it doesn't make sense for a sidewalk to go in here now, then that developer would pay into a fund to help put sidewalks where they do make sense. And if I'm inaccurate on that, please let me know. But I am glad we're discussing this. I appreciate your efforts, and I appreciate the staff on this as well. Thank you.
Councilperson Smith?
Thank you. Yes, I agree with you. We're moving forward, but we're leaving behind the low-income areas. And this has been going on for quite some time now. You wasn't on the council at the time, I don't think, when we was talking about this. This has been brought up before. We're still leaving behind the low-income neighborhoods. They're homeowners and taxpayers that want sidewalks just like anybody else. And I'm not trying to be hard. I'm just trying to get my point across that we are going forward, but we're leaving behind the low-income people. And I don't think that's fair. And I understand in lieu of, but he said we have a matrix used by the street department, but I don't understand the matrix because we have never seen it.
It's in the city code.
Okay. Well, I know the mayor pointed us to it, but I wanted to read it because I want to make sure that we get sidewalks in that area as well. And we're going to have the baseball field over there soon. And I know it's some sidewalks already on College Street. But what about in the neighborhood? We're right next to where the Vulcans is going to be revitalized. And so what about in that neighborhood? We're leaving behind the poor neighborhoods, the low-income neighborhoods. They over in Lincoln Homes, plenty of sidewalks over there. That's federal government property. But these are homeowners and taxpayers in this Red River neighborhood, and I'm standing up for this neighborhood. And it seems to be overlooked a whole lot. A whole lot. Nothing new. So if we're going to make some rules, then we need to put them, be inclusive and add these neighborhoods that has been crying out for sidewalks. I've gotten several calls. Wonder what are we going to do? Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
The Red River plan does point to specific areas in the Red River neighborhood for sidewalks, and we will address that at the appropriate time. Councilperson Allen, you.
Mayor, I still have the floor, and I would like to
All
respond
right,
to
you
that.
have the floor.
So, I would like to address that under item B3, I do outline in this the in lieu of and who can, and that's the ordinance that I have submitted several times in the Transportation Committee. And it basically overarching, it says that, that the Director of Streets can recommend an in lieu of payment if due to pending street or utility construction or other factors, it would be in the best interest of the city of Clarksville to postpone it. The sidewalk is not listed on the sidewalk chart or the Parks and Recreation proposed routes, or the location is not within 1,000 feet of an existing sidewalk on the same side of the street. The location is not within 1.5 miles street distance from an existing or proposed school, or where physical or topographic constraints would create unsafe sidewalk conditions for pedestrians. Those are the only reasons that you can do the in lieu of, that you can even ask to do the in lieu of. That it's very outlined, and then it still comes to the TSG committee for review and to be approved.
You're recognized. Are you finished with that point?
I do, but I'd have this up here. I wanted to talk about the in lieu of before we
We
go
have a
forward.
question first.
Okay. Yep.
Councilperson Allen, you have a question. You're recognized.
Okay, so, I'm gonna say it like this. This ordinance is, and correct me if I'm wrong, this ordinance is from here forward. So this is, if somebody builds something right now, it is, these sidewalks have to be put in. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it unless they meet one of those criteria, right? Now, these subdivisions and everything that are being built, that cost is being put back on the home buyer, the developer, all these different people. The retrofitted sidewalks are being paid for by the city. So that's the difference in this right now. Am I getting that right?
You're getting that mostly right, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, what am I getting wrong?
99%. I can't tell you what 1%
Okay, okay. So that's what so as the city council, we have to look at this ordinance as moving forward, and we have to figure out how we're gonna go backwards. That's not on this ordinance to do that, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Could I make a recommendation? I mean, this is a pretty complicated topic and ordinance change, et cetera. Could we just ask you to, through the city clerk, distribute this to the council and give us a chance to read it instead of just reacting to your description of it?
It's in the agenda, Mayor. The ordinance is in the agenda.
I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying it's in the agenda, but give us a chance to absorb it and talk through it. And the street department needs to weigh in, but not tonight, because it's a pretty significant change. So finish your presentation, but questions and answers may be better left to when you present it and get it on the official agenda.
That's fine, but my goal was, again, to be transparent and put it out there. This is to give everybody time to read it before I present it. Like, usually we don't get it until Tuesday, and then it only gives you, this has been on the street department agenda for 3 months running, and this is exactly why I'm doing this now, to give people an overview and to give the opportunity to read it and actually share comments. So if you have comments or concerns, then I've spoken to Ms. Canfield. You send them to Ms. Canfield, and we will address them at the next TSG meeting, which is on the 14th of November at 3:45. Or better yet, come to the meeting and let's have that conversation up front while we work through this. The reason I did this tonight is to go over it, give you the reasons why, and give you the highlights. So then when you sit down to read it, which is again in the packet, then you kind of understand where I'm coming from and why. Instead of just trying to read it and then trying to tell you why I did things. So I'm just doing it a little backwards. I hope to have it for a vote by December, but I think maybe January is more likely. There is another issue, and Mr. Baker and I have to talk about this. I shared the updates with him. The in lieu of clause was held up in a court case in Knoxville in 2007. But there is a recent case in Nashville in 2023 where they indicated that their portion was not legal, and I don't understand the difference. I think I know, but I wanted so we may actually pull the in lieu of portion out of this ordinance at this time, but I wanted to have that conversation and again, make everyone aware that I looked at it, considered it. There are 5, the in lieu of is in Chattanooga, Knoxville, Cookeville, many cities already do it, Nashville. But because of this new court case that was just decided last month, I'm not sure where we'll move forward to. So, back to, this is like, the other reason, Mayor and Council, the other reason is I wanted to do this in the public today, is now I plan to reach out to the community and really start asking for public input. And I wanted to make sure that you had a basic understanding. So if your constituents came and asked questions, you would at least have an understanding of why and how, and not be surprised. So this was an attempt to be very transparent, give you an overview, and so now I hope that you'll go home. I don't expect you to read the prologue, but perhaps the slides in depth and the ordinance. And that's all I have.
Okay.
Oh, one more thing. Comment. Could you forward your comments, Councilperson McLaughlin, to Ms. Canfield, and she will share them?
Councilperson Smith, you had a final comment about this?
I agree with what the mayor said. I think we need to involve the community, and we need to have someone that is educated on these sidewalks. We appreciate what you're doing now. I'm not belittling anything. But have someone to speak to the community about what you have brought forth. I know you've been working with the street department, and yes, we have heard this over and over again, and I've heard in lieu of over and over again, and I questioned you about this several times on this, and because I didn't feel good about it. And I think we need to have a community input on these sidewalks, or just have them to listen. Not just Red River, but any person in the communities come out and hear about this change that we're trying to bring forth. But I think it needs to be inclusive, not just for what's happening now. We need to be inclusive about those neighborhoods that have been left out for years. And I will say that over and over again until we do what is right. We are the council here, and we're representing our wards. We're representing this city, and we need to do what is right for the people, not just for a few, but for all. We're to be inclusive. When we ran, we should be inclusive, not just for one area, not just for Nemo Road or Whitfield Road. We're concerned about children in all schools. And that's all I want to say. We need a community meeting, Mayor, and I thank you for saying that.
Councilperson Reynolds, your final word.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I used examples of my own ward. I mean, we could all have examples in our different wards, and one only has to drive through Sugar Tree to see that a narrow road and no sidewalks and several hundred rooftops. So it's in every ward, in every community. And while I just use examples of my community, my ward, this really pertains to all of us.
Okay, we're ready for council member comments. Anyone have a comment or a question? Let me announce that one of our capital projects was to replace the crumbling arch as you entered into this building tonight. And at the request of some council members, we have pieces of the arch cut, and they're in bags in the box below the desk. If you would like to take one home, please just get one per person. And we want to, you're very welcome. We want to say thank you to Brandon Sather and John Hilborn and Jennifer Gibson of our project management team for making that happen for us. Okay, we're now ready for public comments. Any member of the public wish to address the council? Seeing none, we are adjourned. See you next week.